Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the July 15th, 2025 Post Falls City Council meeting. Shannon, please note the council members are all present with the exceptions of Councilors Stigliter and Ziegler, both of whom are excused tonight. We do have a couple of announcements. The city is currently updating its comprehensive plan, a long-range guide for growth and development in Post Falls. We're asking for your input through a quick online survey. Your feedback will help shape the future of our community. You can find the survey on the project site at postfalls2045.org. The Parks and Recreation Department, together with the Police Department, is hosting the final Movie in the Park of the season, Cheaper by the Dozen, and it will be playing next Friday, July 25th at Crown Point Park. The movie begins at sunset. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none tonight, sir.
Any declarations of conflict?
No.
Would you please present the consent calendar?
Item A is minutes from the July 1st, 2025 City Council meeting. Item B is payables, July 2nd through July 16th, 2025. Item C is request to declare city vehicle surplus. Item D is Westfork Townhomes Construction Improvement Agreement. And item E is Mongeau Meadows First Edition Final Plat.
Any questions on the consent?
Move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Flu,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Westland,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item up tonight is public hearings. We do have one, and that is on the frontage improvements text amendment. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Manley.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Jacobson and Council President Malloy. John Manley, Planning Manager, introducing the text amendment, file number TA 25-1. The applicant is the Post Falls Planning Division, and we are looking to amend Title 18 to allow us to do a form of frontage waiver request. It's not really a waiver request. I'll go into details of the actual code a little bit, but it amends kind of this old process and kind of adopts maybe hopefully some clarity on where improvements would be done with certain requests. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of this on their June 10th meeting of this year. So why are we here and why are we bringing this forward? I kind of already alluded to this. We had accessory buildings being requested in the past for the city. We would bring these waiver requests because the applicant would be not desiring to do the frontage improvements or alley improvements, oftentimes stating that their neighborhood around them didn't have sidewalks, it didn't make sense. And so we would put together the package and bring it forward to the council. We did this for a number of years, and then ultimately the legal department reviewed the process that we had in place and warned and stated that what we were doing wasn't necessarily defendable by what was adopted by city code, so we stopped doing that. Now that being said, we still had, over the years, the last 2, 3, 4 years, individuals coming to the city wanting their shop or accessory dwelling unit, whatever that may be, and we were still saying, well, we got to trigger these improvements. Well, it was cost prohibitive, and then so they didn't do those improvements, nor did they do their projects, so they're kind of waiting to see the result of what this might be. So that's what the proposed code is to kind of aim to kind of help maybe create a path. This may not be the best path, we'll see, but staff believes, in coordinating with legal department, this is a good path to go forward. So kind of to tell the story here, so post early 90s is when we started getting this more newer form of development where we had curbs, some form of green space, and a sidewalk. Prior to that, when we had about 8,000 people here, most of those houses were on more of the lot and block and alley. So we've added about 40,000. We're now about 48,000 people in Post Falls, and most of them it's not an issue because if you have the curb, the green space, and a sidewalk, you can come in anytime. We're going to issue your accessory dwelling unit or your shop, good to you. But if you're in one of those residents in the older, you're getting stuck with this bill, and then now you can't have your shop, so, or your accessory dwelling unit. So we're hoping that with this, we could maybe address some of the things that with some of the existing code prevents you to do is, if you can't do it, you're not investing in your property. So if you can't invest in your property, then it may turn into potential future blight in your community. Also, if you could have some additional dwelling units closer to the central core, you might have some walkable units to help deal with that core also. And if you're investing in your neighborhood and you're investing in this aspect, it may actually help bring some more community pride in those areas also. So here's kind of an example of a snapshot between here in Post Falls, between 11th and 19th and Lincoln Way and William. I just looked on an aerial and said, how could this be applied? So we do have some of these houses that have these larger backyards, and they more than likely don't, you can see here, they don't have their frontage improvements, and I'll show you a picture of in a minute. So those, you know, if they wanted a shop, we would then, right now, currently require the frontage. Here, you'd probably improve your alley from here to here because that might be your primary access point. If we hit them with that, they're more than likely ain't gonna build a shop. Similarly, on 9th here, we have a little skinny lot here that's empty. Up on 11th, we have a lot there that's empty. And the way the code's written is if you were to do product-specific cottage or tiny home, once again, we wouldn't also hit those. That allows the opportunity to create some attainable housing closer into core without, you know, hitting those improvements. Here's kind of a street view of kind of an older part of the neighborhood. They could have the alley behind them. You see here that this particular one had some curb along this street here. And so, yeah, that's what that street corridor would look like. This is like 1995 Harmony Place. You can kind of see here where it kind of started to change. You have the curb, now you have the green space and the sidewalk. So this particular neighborhood, if they came in and they wanted to put a shop, I guess worst case scenario we would hit them with is probably street trees, because that's the one thing deficient on the solar one is you don't have street trees, and we'd probably maybe figure out a way to irrigate it. So here's the current language, just for that we currently have. We want to pretty much just remove this. And in summary, it basically states that, you know, if you are expanding an existing use by 25% or more of the floor area, that we would hit you with the right-of-way dedication and the frontage improvements. What we're stating now is we are kind of keeping the base language kind of there, but we are kind of expanding right here for when you have a smaller house, increasing that, so it would allow you to not necessarily hit a trigger point if you weren't in one of the exemption areas. But we do have some exemptions where we just wouldn't require. So instead of going to down the path of doing a waiver request, we would basically exempt, so we just wouldn't trigger it all. So if you were a temporary seasonal use, if you had an accessory structure that's not in a smart code zone, and you're not in arterial and a collector roads, and it was smaller than the main house. So if you meet those conditions, then we also, that's when we wouldn't trigger it. The reason for the smart code area being not included was in the smart code areas, we're looking, you're either A, in an area that's been newly developed and it has paved alleys, if you look at up at Crown Point, or you're in the older part of town where it's transforming into more of a mixing of uses and being more commercial and multifamily oriented, and therefore it didn't seem positive to not get those alley improvements. Also on arterial and collector roads, those roads predominantly are busy, and we're trying to promote walkability within the community. So if you happen to have one of those lots along those roads, waiving those didn't seem like the best path forward. Also, we wanted to have the condition that the accessory unit would be smaller than that main house. The other one, which I inferred to on the aerial, was an infill development. So if you're adding 3 cottage and tiny homes on a pre-platted lot, not in a smart code or fronting on an arterial collector, we also would waive those. So, and it would not apply to any non-residential. So if you're doing a commercial use, it wouldn't qualify. So it would have to be a residential, either accessory structure or some form of a development of a cottage tiny home. So here's kind of a picture I put up here to entertain any questions you have that I could maybe bounce off this if need be. Do you have any questions for me with what's being proposed?
Yeah, I've got one. The exemption includes the right-of-way acquisition, right?
Yes.
Is there any value in retaining the right-of-way acquisition, but putting off the sidewalk and frontage improvements? Do we need to be collecting right-of-way in these areas, or do we already have enough?
I'm kind of ambivalent on that. I think I could probably, Rob Paulus and I, we both kind of worked on this, on that aspect. Maybe he would like to chime in on that, since I think right-of-way acquisition is usually beneficial for his endeavors.
Good morning, good evening, councilors. Robert Paul, city engineer. Since this makes an area where you would still be required to put in the frontage improvements or the dedications along collector and arterial roadways, those are areas of highest concern in that regard. The areas that these are looking at are, as John mentioned, a lot of the pre-1990 inventory, and in areas where you have established, in a lot of those places, wider rights-of-way. And without the sidewalks or curb and gutters going in, I don't think there's a high risk in those areas that we would be putting ourselves in danger of needing rights-of-way in the future. I actually think that in a lot of those areas, especially if you're down, well, this is the smart code area, it doesn't apply. But over here, we have some especially wide 100-foot, 85-foot rights-of-way in residential areas. To the north, we have a lot of 75 and 80-foot rights-of-way as well, which is a lot wider than what our current standards are for a 32-foot wide residential street. So I have a very low worry about that.
Okay, yeah, I know we've vacated right-of-way on a couple places where we had more than we needed.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any questions, John?
No.
Thanks, sir.
Seems like I've done a good job punting to Rob here lately.
He's a good receiver.
So just to finish things up, these are the agencies that were notified. The comments that we received really weren't of any concern for what was being proposed. So that pretty much wraps up the staff report on it.
Thank you. Shannon, anyone wishing to testify?
We have none.
Close the public hearing. My comment would be, I think this makes sense. We went through a project where we did have to put improvements in. I didn't agree with it, but I understand where what the city's position was and why it was required. I think it was different, a little bit different than what John just talked about. In these areas, if you're looking at an ADU or, specific limits to the additional space that can be added in an area where there are no improvements or no, streets or curbs, gutters, sidewalks, I don't think it makes sense to build a sidewalk going to nowhere. So I would, actually, didn't work for us, but it was a different situation, but I would be in support of this change.
Yeah, I think this is a great thing for us to do. There are cases where, like you said, you can be building an accessory unit in your backyard for an adult child or a mother-in-law, and you're not changing the front of your house at all. It looks identical, and you're required to build a sidewalk that doesn't connect to anything. And it's just a silly thing to do that discourages investment and redevelopment in the area. So I think this is a fantastic thing for us to be doing to get people to be investing in their properties and being able to use their property fully.
I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole idea of deterrent, there's been, I'm sure, several people that have chosen not to because of those improvements, so I'm all about simplification.
Perfect. So we need a motion.
I would move to approve the frontage improvements text amendment TA-25-1.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Shannon, please take the roll.
Davis,
Aye.
Westland,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I'm really trying to get used to going back to 4 counselors instead of 6. We started, we only had 4. Next up tonight is unfinished business, returning ordinances. We have the Spokane Street and Poleline Avenue Roundabout Rehabilitation. And yes, this is the one I thought was only a couple years old. It was built in 2009.
I think I have the date in one of the slides.
I think you did, and I think that was why.
You'll see it again. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Andrew Arbini, Projects Division Manager for Public Works. My presentation is a recommendation of award for a construction contract. This will address resurfacing of the Spokane and Poleline Roundabout. This is an aerial view meant to orientate everyone with the location. The White Pine Park is located on the northeast and southeast corner for reference. So this project was originally budgeted as a Streets Division annual maintenance project. Every year, the streets crew develops a list of paving projects. This was included. The streets crew visited the site around winter time this year and discovered that upon further investigation of the surface area, that the extent of the repair extended into the base rock and as well as the subgrade surface. Became pretty clear that this was, with the extended scope, that this was conducive to a contracted work, construction contract. This is a picture of the original design. This project includes just repaving the existing pavement, so we're not making any changes to the roundabout structure itself, with the exception of replacement of some pedestrian ramps to meet ADA requirements. You can see the cracking of the pavement surface in both of these photos. So this project would capture all of that asphalt pavement with new pavement. So last winter, I presented on this project a couple times. At that time, I believe it was a request for design contract with Welchcomer. They developed a set of design drawings and bidding documents. Following completion of those documents, city reached out to 4 contractors under the informal bidding process. On June 27th, we received 2 bids. The apparent low bid from Interstate Concrete and Asphalt, listed up on the screen. Following Welchcomer and our legal staff review, staff's recommendation that the contract be awarded to Interstate as the low bid. So the contract award is the amount of $167,080.75. Staff is requesting a 10% contingency, bringing the total request to $183,788.75. This is budgeted completely through the annual streets reconstruction budget. I believe I mentioned previously, so the Spokane Street reconstruction that we wrapped up last month or 2 months ago now, we are working through the final closeout, and that project was largely funded through grant funds. Any remaining grant funds will be applied towards this project, so that would offset the costs against the streets annual reconstruction budget. As far as next steps, so following council approval this evening, staff will coordinate with Welchcomer and Interstate to finalize contract documents, sign the agreement. Would anticipate that Interstate would select a start date. We provided some flexibility with a no later than September 2nd to ensure that all of the work can be completed before winter months kick in. A little bit of the work, just to describe what to expect. We will have to close the roundabout during construction. It's expected that it would last about 2 weeks to do the full rehabilitation work. The crew would remove the asphalt, do the subsurface repair, and then repave the roundabout. Contractor would then come back at a future date after the new pavements had an opportunity to cure, and then they would apply the permanent striping. So there would be a second round of short-term closures to apply that striping. During that time, there will be detours in place. It's rather long detours, but we will publish those once we have dates confirmed with the contractor, so notice will be provided. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions of Andrew? Pretty straightforward. You drive through it and you realize it is not in good shape and needs to be repaired.
I'd move to approve the Spokane Street and Poleline Avenue Roundabout Rehabilitation.
Second.
Concrete.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Westland,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Next item on the agenda is new business, and tonight we have none, followed by citizens' issues. And this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council on non-agenda items. If anyone wishes to speak, come forward. Seeing no takers, we're now down to administrative and staff reports, and the first is a prosecution update. I have a feeling we're going to meet our new prosecutor, but we're going to let Field lead off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Field Harrington, City Attorney. I'd like to introduce Ms. Casey Drews, our new city prosecutor. Casey joins us with extensive courtroom experience, as well as a balanced background in both prosecution and defense. We're excited to have her on board, and while we technically don't run a judicial training program, we seem to have a pretty solid track record of launching people toward the judiciary. So she's our newest participant in our magistrate training program, but we hope we don't lose her to the bench anytime soon.
Is it like a 6 or 8 year program?
Hopefully
minimum?
it's a 10-year program.
Good.
Let her take the wheel.
Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for my introduction, Field. This is actually dated just prior to when I started, and a lot of this kind of occurred prior to me coming to the office, but I'm familiar with everything in this presentation, so I feel good talking about it to you all. With that, we'll get started. We're going through 4 kind of main things tonight: the prosecution highlight, specialty courts, quarterly trends, and prosecution numbers by jurisdiction.
Excuse me, Casey. I'm getting the motion. Could you get closer to the mic so that it goes across? Thank you.
Good. Can everyone hear me better?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So this prosecution highlight had to do with the massage parlor investigation. That was kind of a multi-jurisdictional investigation. It included the county, included both the cities. It also included the feds. Post Falls assisted in that in obtaining search warrants for 2 local massage parlors. That included getting evidence from those, and also those ended up shutting down as a result of these warrants and information that was gathered. I tried to get an update on any criminal charges that were filed. As of today, I didn't get an update. I know they kind of went back and forth between the county and the feds and who would take this, and I think there's probably still in limbo with that right now. The specialty court programs are alternative sentencing programs. Post Falls is involved in 3 of the 4. The reason they're not involved in the 4th one is because that's for felony only. That's the mental health drug court. But Post Falls is heavily involved in the DUI court, the domestic violence diversion court, as well as the newest specialty court, which is Veterans Court. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it's basically an alternative to more traditional sentencing approaches, where a participant enters into a specialty court program and is successful at the end of usually an 18-month or 2-year period. Those charges that they pled to are ultimately either dismissed or amended down to a reduced charge. It has a really great recidivism rates. They're extremely low. DUI court, I think it's actually at 3% now. This shows 2%. We had 4 recent graduates from Post Falls to the domestic violence court, and then Veterans Court is the newest. That just started not too long ago, probably a little over a year ago. Post Falls is involved in that. There's 3 prosecuting attorneys. Each one of us is assigned to one of these treatment courts. Each one of us attends the weekly meetings. Sometimes every other week we attend these with all the other prosecutors and team members, and we do staffing, make decisions, talk about the program. When I was at the county, I was part of the mental health court treatment program, and at that time, the Post Falls prosecutor, Lauren Levine, one of the deputy prosecutors, she's part of the DUI court program, but she actually knitted or crocheted 100 little fidgets for all the participants in her DUI court program, and then presented 55 additional ones to the mental health court program. So she really went above and beyond, and I know our participants in particular in the mental health court program really loved them. They were these little fidget worms. They were super cute, but also just something that they really liked and utilized. I've seen them in court several times since then. They're quiet fidgets. So the quarterly trends, we are seeing the upward trend in the Post Falls numbers. I don't think we have a final number for that at this point, but it has the projection of 249. I think that's pretty normal for this time of year. Is the weather gets nicer and we have more people visiting the area. crime tends to go up just because numbers go up. This is a breakdown of the types of crimes that we're seeing across all 3 jurisdictions, so that would include Hayden, Post Falls, and Rathdrum. We see our most crimes with the DUI and the drug-related crimes. And then we have the infractions, and then there's a handful of property and personal people crimes, and then a couple of just random things we don't see much of. I have been seeing a handful of the child custody interference. I didn't see a lot of that prior, but I have seen a handful of those lately. But other than that, it's DUI and drugs across all jurisdictions. These are the Rathdrum numbers. They all are, I mean, similar though. And then Post Falls. And that's it for me, unless you guys have questions.
Any questions, Casey?
This time, no.
Well, appreciate, again, welcome aboard, and we'll look forward to working with you as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. And if you see me out and about, feel free to say hello. You know, I love establishing relationships. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is community development update. Mr. Seal.
Bob Seal, Community Development Director for the city. So this isn't my usual fun community development updates I like to give. I decided to follow Shelley's format. This is primarily focused on a couple of them are council initiated requests, as well as a topic that we went through council over the past year. Just kind of giving you an update so that everybody can stay in tune as to where we're at through the process. Last year in July, Councilor Westland had proposed a request to look at putting limited amount of commercial into residential zones. And part of that was to kind of look at adding a kind of a stepping stone for entrepreneurs and providing some kinds of options for limited commercial uses within those areas, kind of like you see in some older cities. And maybe looking at options that were along higher traffic roadways, whether that's some of our more arterial roads or collectors. And we talked about whether that should be like a special use permit in R1 zones or what it might look like. Well, we followed up with Councilor Westland in January. John Manley, the planning manager, Justin Miller, the building official, and I sat down and we talked about it to kind of get a flavor for what it was that he was looking for, so we can better advise the process, look at it further, and understand where we wanted to go. We talked about different situations, primarily because we have home occupations. We talked about the idea of kind of looking at was maybe we'd break it into categories, class 1 or class 2 or major or minor home occupations. Talked about the potential for rezones. Are there some areas that should be rezoned, like along Spokane Street or Idaho Street? And we talked about potentially including some kind of administrative exceptions. Just kind of bounced around ideas. How do we get to where we want to be? And ultimately the idea I think will be really best followed up on by addressing it through the comp plan process, kind of looking at some areas that maybe we do want to increase commercial activity or allow for these types of smaller commercial, whether it's nodes or allowing for a house to slowly convert to commercial, making commercial more of a primary use and residential as an accessory use, whereas home occupations is residential is the primary use and commercial is the accessory use. So it'll be it's something that is ongoing and that we are continuing to look at, and we will look at more during the comp plan process. So, the other topic was the deferring of impact fees. We discussed this a few times last year in August and then September, and then, or actually we went to P&Z in August, talked with you in September and December. And this was the idea of deferring impact fees for deed restricted, attainable, affordable housing ideas. This is something that I keep hearing from other interested parties as to how this still could benefit some of the whether it's benefit residential projects. I'd rather bring this back up during the impact fee process as we move along this year, because there are some things that we're doing in the impact fee process that will help to benefit residential development anyways. At least that's what the hope is from the impact fee update. So just kind of letting you know, we'll be back. The other topic was removing residential from commercial zones. This was the topic that was brought up in August of last year by Councilor Stiegleiter. The request was to limit multifamily, tiny homes, and cottage homes in the CCS zones. And this idea was tossed around a number of times at the staff level, just kind of like, how do we move forward with this? How do we process this? And at that time, when it was requested, it kind of came up that, well, you know, we're gonna be doing the comp plan update. Maybe that's the best time to do it. But a comp plan has taken longer to get off the ground than originally thought. So in April, Councilor Westland did put in a request for action to remove standalone multifamily from the CCS and LC zones. And so admin and community development got together and kind of talked about, let's discuss this path forward. Let's see what directions we need to go. And that would, it likely involves updating a comprehensive plan. Certain aspects in the comprehensive plan, call out CCS and LC zones and implementing zones for multifamily purposes. So we'd have to potentially do an update to that, as well as obviously updating and changing the zoning code. In May, middle of May, May 13th, an email was sent to the councilors asking for requesting a date for a special workshop. There was not enough response in order to set up that special workshop. So that's kind of where we're at now. Is we'll probably potentially send out another email saying, hey, can we set up a special workshop date to talk about this in more detail. Additionally, this is something that could also be addressed during the comp plan process, or I think in a kind of a combo, I think would be good, so that we can talk about it more individually besides just at the comp plan level. But anyways, those are the kind of the updates that I had at this time. Do you have any questions?
Bob? No. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next up is the mayor and council comments. I guess the only thing I'd say is we had a ribbon cutting at Eats on Spokane Street, and we had a groundbreaking this morning across the street at Nona's, and it's good to see additional commercial development in this downtown core area, and I think both will hopefully help facilitate additional growth to make it an actual downtown area. So I really appreciate the folks who are involved and their willingness to invest in Post Falls, and in particular in Post Falls in general, and in this area of town in particular. So I look forward to more good things along this corridor out here. How about council comments?
None at this time.
We do need an executive session.
I move to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Codes 74-206C to acquire interest in real property not owned by a public agency, 74-206D to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code, and 74-206F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. And further, that no action will be taken during the session, and the session will last approximately 18 minutes and 47 seconds.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Westland,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll enter executive session. Call the meeting back to order. Are there any motions to come forward?
Adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.